So happy day 2 of peak week. It is Sunday today. I have to say, Sundays are like my all-time favorite day. I teach Sunday school, so I just got finished with Sunday school and then church, and it's just awesome because these little kids are the cutest and they love praying and love Jesus, and it's just so cute to see them. I do first grade, so they're like tiny munchkins. And we did a candy activity today, so that was rough because I wanted to eat all of the M&Ms and jelly beans. Instead I brought my meat stick, so that is my treat instead of candy today. I just think it's an awesome thing to be able to understand and place the importance on like mental and spiritual health in addition to physical health. I think a lot of times we get all caught up in like the physical health piece of it and think that that's gonna like fix all of our problems. And I think one of the biggest things that is important for people to know is that like if you're not in a good place mentally or spiritually, then like it's gonna be hard to be ever in a good place physically. I think we think that being physically fit is gonna fix our problems, or like having a six-pack is gonna make you happy. But it's if you're not in a good place mentally first, and then I think spiritually, then it's gonna be hard for you, I think, to feel like totally confident regardless of your physical state. I know like my prep I did last year, just being like totally honest, I feel like I wasn't in a really good place mentally, and so I went through the prep, and then when I got to the end and I had this body that I was really proud of and really excited about, kind of like the body I had always wanted, I was surprised because I still, shocker, wasn't happy. It didn't bring me happiness. It didn't bring me that kind of inner peace and mental state that I had been looking for. And I think this time around is so different because I really had to be at a good place mentally and say, hey, like I'm gonna love my body and I'm gonna have a good relationship with Christ and with others regardless of the way that I look. And once I can have that foundation, that's really kind of set me up to be in a much better place physically too, and to kind of learn to love your body in all of its stages and the pros and cons of each stage, and then kind of take that, the cons, and just use them as something that makes you want to be better and make yourself better, rather than being like down on yourself because of them. So that's kind of the difference this time around, and something that I'll like always believe in is just the importance of being in a good place mentally and spiritually too, to even be able to be in a good place physically. So anyways, just full of energy, love the kiddos, eating my meat stick instead of candy. What else is going on? Oh, it's the first low carb day today, so that means that today my calories are about the same, maybe a little bit lower, be just over 1100, and my carbs are actually going to drop to 60 grams, which is so low, really for anyone usually, but especially for me because I'm normally like a high carb girl. So that's like super low for me. And the reason we do the low carb days and I'm still learning this and still trying to understand the science behind it, but if I'm explaining it correctly, by doing low carb days, we are depleting like the glycogen out of our muscle, the glycogen storage out of our muscle, as well as forcing our body to release or not hold on to as much water. So we're depleting our muscles. We're taking all of the glycogen and all of the water, essentially flushing that out by doing low carb days. And then the goal is then to, like the day before the show, do a high carb day to fill our muscles back up with that glycogen and a little bit of water, and then it makes our muscles look fuller and more defined. Again, I'm still learning like the sciencey piece of that and how that all makes sense. Garrett might explain that way better than I did. But So we're doing the low carb days starting today. And I think the common misconception that I wanted to touch on with the low carb days is that we're not doing low carb to lose fat. Like, you don't lose weight by doing low carb. And I think a lot of people think, oh, carbs make me gain weight. And that's a very common misconception. So we don't do low carbs to lose fat. At this point, our bodies are what they are, and I'm not necessarily gonna get any leaner this week. It's just about peaking myself so that my muscles look the best that they can on Saturday. But that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily gonna like lose any more fat. So the low carb doesn't make you lose fat or lose weight. Being in the caloric deficit is what's gonna make you lose fat and lose weight. The thing that I think a lot of people think of, you know, they think, oh wow, carbs make me fat, but really carbs might make you bloat, but they're not making you fat. And cutting carbs won't make you lose weight. It's the cutting the calories that's probably going to make you lose the weight, and you're just associating that with the carbs. Some people do have sensitivities to things that are generally in higher carb foods. So some people are going to be more sensitive to like simple carbohydrates and might bloat, or you know, might have different reactions to them. So that's something to be aware of too. If you know, it's not necessarily that your body doesn't process carbs. It might be that your body's gonna do better with sweet potatoes than it is with, like, you know, white bread or you know, something like that. It might just be you need to find like the types of carbs that your body is gonna digest and process better, so that you don't feel yucky and you don't have too much sugar. So that's just kind of a carb little lesson. Again, it's really cool doing all my certifications, kind of like learning the science behind it, because I am like that science nerd at heart. My dad would be like so proud of me saying that. It's for you, Dad. And I should have been an engineer. He was right all along. But yeah, the science is really cool. So we are kind of, again, doing the low carb, depleting today. I'm still feeling strong. So I'm gonna do, my lift for today is gonna be a heavy back squat day. It's probably gonna be like it will be my last heavy back squat day, but it'll be super exciting. I'm gonna do back squats and hip thrusts, and barbell walking lunges are kind of like the three big things for today, and some hamstring curls. So that will be my workout. And let's see, we'll just keep you updated if anything else exciting happens on day 2 of peak week. Hey, so I just finished my workout. I just got back and it was good. I was able to get my same weight in back squat, so that's kind of a good accomplishment. And I was able to do some HIIT training, or high intensity interval training, which was awesome too. And then even some steady state cardio. So I've added more cardio in than I usually do. Normally I don't do like any cardio, so I have added the cardio in the last couple weeks here, and so my energy feels good. The thing with low carb that I didn't really talk about earlier is that when you combine the low carb diet with the caloric deficit, you actually really drain a lot of your you can drain a lot of your energy. So people, again, to kind of the misunderstanding of low carb diets, actually they can really make you feel kind of lethargic, and actually even kind of like, I don't know what other word to use, like fluffy. So you can really kind of feel fluffier and constipated, because if you're cutting out the carbs, you're usually having higher protein, which can make you feel a little constipated. And I don't know, it's not the best kind of feeling diet. So that's why I do take the fiber, like I had talked about in my supplement video. But it also really affects, like I said, your energy. So if you see anyone you know that competes, or if you run into Garrett or I, and you hear people talk about the caloric deficit or have really low energy, I mean, that's kind of what's going on, is that you're just draining the energy supply from your body, essentially. So that would be something to be aware of if you are thinking about competing. It's just the last couple weeks you're very low energy, very like temperamental even. So for example, it took me like 3 tries to blow out my candle last night, and I was like super upset about it. I got so mad at the candle. Or like my husband will tell you, living with me, and I just get like really short. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't take the trash out? Or, you know, dumb things like that. So that is an impact of it, kind of with the slow energy. Really anything that you would do like in your daily life just becomes slower. You have to budget more time for. So like if I'm walking, I walk at like 1 mile an hour pace, and you hope that you don't get stuck behind me. And like I had someone hold the door for me, and I was like, hold on, I'll get there, but it's gonna be a sec. Just, you know, things to learn about the whole competing process is that caloric deficit is real. But it's okay because you can do it for a few days, and it's all about pushing your body to its limits. And it's neat because you can find out kind of like what your limits are. So that's a cool part of it. Another nice thing about low carb days, I guess, is that I'm like sitting outside. It is beautiful out, and I like eating cheese. So I don't know if that was like a good shot. It's like my cheese and meat and like mustard lunch. I love cheese, and I normally don't fit it in just because it's kind of high in calories, and I'd rather eat like a larger volume of stuff. But on the low carb days, I always make sure I give myself cheese, and it is awesome. So I'm eating cheese now. And what else did I want to talk about? See, this is the calorie deficit. Like, I forget what I'm doing. Eating cheese, that's good. And we're back. Sorry about that. I just needed to eat, I guess. But another thing that's been terrible is the allergies in Ohio. I mean, it is stunning out. Like, it is a beautiful day. Construction across the street. It's beautiful. But it is, like, you can see the pollen in the air. It's terrible. So that's been something that's kind of added to the struggle of the peak week, is living in Ohio. So anyone that lives where it's drier and has dry heat, your preps are probably easier. Just saying. Some other things I've eaten today on the low calorie or the low carb days are the cheese and the turkey. I made eggs, and I call them like lazy deviled eggs because it's essentially just a hard-boiled egg, and then anything that you would make it deviled with, you just put on top. So it's lazy, like you just don't have to mix it up. Like the mustard, and I just do mustard and garlic salt and like sprinkle it over the hard-boiled eggs, and it's so good. And I did celery sticks with the fluff butter that I love, because you can eat a lot of celery for very little calories and little carbs, which is great. And the fluff butter, you don't need a whole lot of it, so it's perfect. And then for dinner, we're gonna do the barbecue bunless chicken burgers that I came up with on my blog. So we're gonna do those tonight, and that will be a nice little treat too. Lots of cheese on them, obviously. And then some protein ice cream for dessert.